Silence is not the absence of thought. It is the presence of something far more dangerous. It is the sound of awareness sharpening its blade. It is the breath before the truth strikes. It is the ground beneath every lie, every mask, every illusion trembling, because the strongest mind doesn't shout. It doesn't plead. It doesn't demand to be seen. It watches. While the world worships noise in status, noise in opinion, noise in constant reaction, the strong mind withdraws into the sanctuary of stillness, not because it is passive, but because it is precise, because it knows that the moment you react emotionally to chaos, you have given it your throne. You want to know what true strength looks like? It's not the man who dominates a room with volume. It's not the woman who responds to every insult with cleverness. It is the individual who feels the heat of battle and chooses stillness over retaliation, not out of weakness, but because they know that silence commands more power than noise ever could. Jung understood this. He wrote of the unconscious not as a dark pit of shame and fear, but as a vast ocean of potential. And the only ones who truly master it are those who can observe it without flinching, without distraction, without needing to scream over it, because silence is the domain of those who have made peace with their own depth. And that is the first lesson. You cannot build a strong mind by adding more noise. You must subtract everything that weakens your signal. The opinions, the performances, the masks you wear for love, validation, survival, gone. Only then does a voice within get louder. Not in volume, but in truth. You will be tempted to speak before you've thought. You will be tempted to post before you've processed. You will be tempted to react before you remember who you are. Don't. There is a war being waged for your attention, and silence is the only shield that holds. But don't confuse this silence with inaction. Silence is not surrender. Silence is the forge. The place where the warrior melts down every weak belief he inherited from others. The place where the queen carves new definitions of worth out of the chaos of her ancestors' wounds. The place where the old mind dies and the sovereign one is born. Because here's the truth. No one told you. Most people are not thinking. They are reacting. They are repeating. They are reciting inherited noise and mistaking it for wisdom. But not you. If you choose, it can live awake. But to do that, you must learn to watch. Watch how your mind reaches for safety the moment discomfort enters the room. Watch how your ego screams for attention the moment you're not validated. Watch how easily you betray yourself just to belong. Not to judge, not to shame, but to know. Because knowing is the beginning of freedom. And freedom is the foundation of strength. You must become the watcher of your own psyche, the observer behind the thought, the witness behind the performance, the soul behind the survival pattern. This is not poetic spirituality. This is neurosurgical truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. And when you realize that, when you feel it in your bones, you no longer fear your mind. You no longer run from your shadow. You stare it in the face, and it bows. Because your silence has become a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. This is psyphoria, the state of psychological euphoria that arises when the unconscious is no longer an enemy, but a territory, your territory. And the only way to claim it is to sit still enough to feel its shape. Let others chase noise. Let them run from solitude like it's a prison. You build your kingdom in it. The strongest mind is not the one that controls others. It's the one that no longer needs to. The strongest mind doesn't speak to be heard. It speaks because it must, and when it does, the room changes. Let's talk about belief. Not the kind you were handed. Not the kind you borrowed from culture, family, or your latest YouTube guru. I mean the kind of belief that you forge in the silence of your own becoming. Real belief doesn't shout affirmations in the mirror. It doesn't beg the world to believe with you. Real belief is silent, unshakable, unarguable. It's what's left when the world has laughed, doubted, walked away, and you still move. And here's what makes it powerful. It was born in silence. You didn't perform for it. You didn't broadcast it. You earned it alone. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And belief is forged in the awakening. You want to be unstoppable? Then build beliefs so deep they don't require validation. So true, they offend the performative. So real, they dismantle your former self. Clarity comes next. And clarity doesn't arrive through answers. It arrives through removal. Clarity is what's left when you burn everything that is not you. The masks, the roles, the identities that kept you safe but small. Clarity is violent. It doesn't whisper. It tears illusions at the root. But when it's done, what's left is you. Raw, unapologetic, real. Clarity is the mother of vision, because you cannot envision your future through a fog of delusion. You cannot manifest your greatness while clinging to roles meant to please the crowd. You must stand naked in your truth before you can dress your destiny. This is where vision begins, not in fantasy, not in hype, but in sobriety. The sober, silent truth of who you are, without applause, without envy, without distortion. And when you see it clearly, you move. Not because someone told you to, but because your soul can no longer stay still. Purpose is not found. It is remembered, and the memory lives deep in the silence you've avoided. You were never confused. You were distracted. You didn't lack purpose. You lacked the courage to unplug from everything that numbed the whisper. So plug back in, not to the world, to yourself. Close the apps. Ignore the noise. Return to the place within that already knows. Purpose is not a career. It's not a brand. It's a fire that burns beneath your silence. And once you light it, it will terrify the parts of you still addicted to comfort. Let it, because comfort is not your destiny. Conviction is. And conviction doesn't come from speeches or slogans. It comes from watching the storm in your mind and standing still. Discipline follows, not the performative kind, not the hustle-porn dopamine hit of 5 a.m. routines and biohacks. I mean the kind of discipline that rises from respect for your mind, your mission, your silence. Discipline is self-worship without ego. It is saying, I am worth the effort. I am worth the stillness. I am worth the rebuilding. It is a quiet promise you make to yourself at 4 a.m. and keep even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. Discipline is not the cage. It is the key. And action is the test. Not action for applause, not action for followers, action for alignment. The kind of action that comes from stillness, from watching, from knowing. The world doesn't change through noise. It changes when one person dares to act from truth. Truth that was born in silence. Truth that was refined in solitude. Truth that doesn't ask for permission to move. Because truth doesn't need permission. It just needs you. Gratitude, not the cliche kind. Not the kind you post for likes or say to avoid seeming ungrateful. But the kind that humbles your soul and breaks your ego into something sacred. The kind that whispers, you are already standing in what once felt impossible. You don't practice gratitude to pretend everything is perfect. You practice gratitude to train your eyes to see what your fear would otherwise blind you from. The strongest mind sees what it has, even in loss. It sees what is working, even in the middle of chaos. It sees the small seeds while others only scream about the drought. Gratitude is not denial. It is precision. It is the decision to see clearly when life tries to drown you in illusion. Gratitude doesn't numb the pain. It grounds you in reality. And that's the power of it. It brings you back to yourself. You've been taught to look outward for miracles. But the strongest mind knows the miracle is that you're still here. After everything. Still thinking. Still feeling. Still choosing to grow instead of decay. That is not weakness. That is mastery in motion. Now let's talk about adaptability. Because the ones who survived the storm aren't the ones who built the biggest shelter. They're the ones who became the storm. Life will not hand you a script. It will not ask if you're ready. It will interrupt, disrupt, dismantle. And the question is, will you fight reality or will you reshape yourself within it? Adaptability is not compromise. It's creative power. It's the ability to shift your shape without losing your soul. Jung understood this deeply. He knew that those who cling to rigid identities suffer the most. Because every identity, if not watched carefully, becomes a prison. So adapt, not to fit in, but to evolve. Mold your strategies. Reshape your routines. Kill old habits. Let dead dreams die. Not because you failed, but because you're growing faster than your past can hold you. The adaptable mind is the most dangerous mind, because no matter what happens, it refuses to be broken. It only transforms. And from that adaptability comes resilience. But not the Instagram version. Not the look how strong I am while I pretend nothing hurts version. Real resilience is ugly. It's bloody. It's crawling through your lowest moment and still choosing not to become bitter. It is the art of being broken without being destroyed. You felt it. You've had nights where your soul screamed in silence. And yet, you woke up anyway. You kept going. You didn't quit. That's resilience. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quietest thing in the room. Sometimes it's just not giving up when it would be easier to disappear. That's strength. That's beauty. That's the birth of something unkillable. And what gives that resilience its direction? Learning. Not the accumulation of facts. Not collecting quotes to sound deep. I'm talking about the learning that costs you something. The kind that humbles your pride. The kind that forces you to rewrite who you thought you were. True learning is an act of war. A war against ignorance, against ego, against stagnation. Most people don't learn. They defend their pain. They defend their narrative. They defend their identity because it's all they've ever known. But the strong mind, it sacrifices comfort for clarity. It says, if this belief no longer serves me, I'll burn it. That's learning. That's evolution. That's the only path to freedom. And here's the deepest truth of all. You were never meant to be understood by a world addicted to distraction. You were meant to watch that world from the stillness of your inner cathedral and choose, not react, not perform, not people please. Choose. Because choosing in silence, with full awareness, that is power. You don't need louder affirmations. You need deeper awareness. You don't need a new identity. You need the courage to remember who you were before the world taught you who to be. Everything you've ever needed is already inside you, but it speaks a language only silence understands. And this is the final revelation. The strongest mind doesn't need to fight everything. It just needs to stop abandoning itself. Let the noise rage. Let the world chase trends, followers, distractions. You watch. Because the one who watches rules. The mind that watches in silence sees beyond manipulation. It sees through the smile hiding betrayal. It sees the fear beneath the arrogance. It sees the unconscious patterns playing on repeat in everyone else's eyes. And instead of being drawn into the chaos, it waits. It observes. It builds so that when it moves like thunder. Not loud, but undeniable. Let others fill the silence with noise. You become the silence. Because in a world that cannot stop talking, the one who watches without reaction, listens without judgment, moves without needing praise. That one is the most dangerous of all. That one is free. And now you rise, not with fireworks, not with noise, but with a presence so still. The universe adjusts its rhythm to meet your frequency. You rise from the ashes of your old identities. The performer, the people pleaser, the forgiver of unforgivable things, the quiet absorber of pain just to keep the peace, all of it gone, dissolved in the fire of awareness. And what remains? A force that doesn't need to explain itself, a presence that speaks before it opens its mouth, a soul so deeply rooted in truth no storm can unearth it. You no longer chase alignment. You are alignment. You no longer search for the right path. You walk it step by step, breath by breath, in sovereign silence. Because you have remembered you were never meant to conform. You were meant to create. You were never meant to be liked. You were meant to be known by the few, not the many, by the real, not the loud. And now you understand true power doesn't fight to be heard. True power builds in the silence, then arrives unannounced. You are that power, not someday. Now, right now, in this moment, with your heartbeat steady and your mind watching, you become something the world cannot categorize. Not a role, not a trend, not a copy of someone else's success, but a singular force of becoming, rooted, unshakable, silent but not small. The world has taught you that noise equals relevance. But you know better now, because you've touched the edge of something ancient, something real, something that can't be bought, taught, or replicated. The unwavering sovereignty of your own mind. And from here, you will not beg. You will not chase. You will not shrink. You will watch. You will move with intention. You will speak with purpose. You will create in stillness what others can only destroy in noise. You will be underestimated, let them. You will be misunderstood, let them. You will be doubted good. Because when your truth no longer requires translation, when your power no longer asks permission, when your silence no longer trembles but commands, that's when you become untouchable, not invincible, not perfect, untouchable. Because nothing can touch the soul that no longer abandons itself. And this is the highest form of strength. The mind that sees everything, but chooses stillness over spectacle, silence over reaction, purpose over popularity. So walk now, not faster, not louder, but deeper. Walk like every step is writing scripture. Walk like your soul remembers the contract it made before you were born. Walk like the world has never seen anything like you, because it hasn't. And as you walk, let others talk. Let them guess. Let them gossip. Let them misread you. Again and again, they will never understand the mind that's built in silence. They will never comprehend the spirit that no longer seeks applause. They will never decode a presence that's too ancient to need validation. But you will understand. You will feel it in your bones. Because the strongest mind is not the one that shouts from the rooftops. It's the one that moves mountains in silence. And now, you are that mind. You are that mountain. You are that storm behind stillness. So rise, not to be seen, but to see more clearly than you ever have. And when the world asks, where did you get this power? Where did you find this calm? How did you become so unshakable? Let your silence answer, because silence is the final form of mastery. And you are already living it. Mental power doesn't roar. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg to be noticed. Real mental power is silent, cold, precise, and devastatingly effective. It doesn't waste energy proving itself. It knows. We were taught that strength was external. That power was in dominance, in noise, in numbers. But the mind, the true mind, knows better. The most dangerous power in the world is the man or woman who has mastered their own thoughts. Because when you command your inner world, nothing out there can break you. Not betrayal, not loss, not isolation, not failure. Mental power is not inherited, it's earned, forged in silence, built in discomfort, sharpened by pain, and sealed by the refusal to be a slave to your emotions. Look around you. Everyone's reacting. Everyone's triggered. Everyone's chasing the next distraction, the next dopamine hit, the next shiny thing that gives them 5 minutes of escape from themselves. Mental power isn't about escape. It's about endurance. The ability to sit in the fire of your own shadow and not flinch. That's where the game changes. That's where average men fold and powerful minds rise. A mentally powerful person doesn't fight reality. They absorb it. They decode it. They reshape it using internal alchemy. You think you're powerless because of your circumstances. But the truth is you've been giving away your power by how you interpret those circumstances. You hand it over every time you say, I can't help it. I'm just like this. This is how I've always been. No, you chose that lens. You installed that belief. And what you install, you can uninstall. That's mental power, the recognition that everything you believe is just a story. And every story can be rewritten. A powerful mind is not positive. It's sovereign. It doesn't lie to you. It doesn't coat life in delusion. It tells the truth ruthlessly. But from that truth, it creates agency. You don't get stronger by pretending. You get stronger by choosing to feel everything and still not collapse. We're not talking about toxic toughness. This isn't about bottling your pain. This is about transmuting it, making something useful out of it, something you can stand on, something no one can take from you. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But you, if you're still listening, you're not most people. You're not here to avoid. You're here to confront, because you've tasted the cost of avoidance. You've lived the consequences of mental weakness, the overthinking, the paralysis, the people-pleasing, the rage you never named. And now, something inside you is done. That's the beginning of mental power. The moment you stop running, the moment you stop blaming, The moment you turn around and face your mind like a beast in the dark and say, no more. You work for me now. And it won't happen overnight because the mind is ancient. It doesn't trust declarations, it trusts habits. You'll have to earn its respect every time you wake up early when you don't feel like it. Every time you shut the door on a toxic thought before it festers. Every time you act in alignment with your highest self, not your laziest impulse. You send a signal. I'm in charge now. Not your trauma. Not your inner critic. Not the broken voice from childhood. You. And over time, the mind listens. It stops fighting you. It starts serving you like a wild animal that's finally learned who the master is. That's mental power. Command, not control. Leadership, not domination. Influence, not intimidation. You don't force a powerful mind into submission. You earn its loyalty through discipline. Discipline of thought. Discipline of attention. Discipline of response. And let me be clear, mental power is not about being emotionless. It's about emotional fluency. Knowing the difference between a wound and a weapon. Feeling your anger but not becoming it. Acknowledging your fear but not obeying it. Letting your sadness speak but not letting it steer. A mentally powerful person doesn't repress their feelings. They regulate them. They listen without reacting. They pause before responding. They hold space for their storm without unleashing it on the world. This is how you scare weak people. Not with aggression, with clarity. Not with noise, with presence. Not with perfection, but with precision. The world is loud because it's insecure. But the powerful, they are silent and sovereign. Because when your mind is in order, everything else follows. Mental power is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing yourself. Knowing your shadows so well that no one can weaponize them against you. Knowing your triggers so deeply that no one can manipulate them. Knowing your vision so clearly that no distraction feels tempting. You become immovable, not stubborn anchored, not inflexible, grounded. That's how you terrify manipulators. They can't get in because you're no longer leaking approval. You're no longer outsourcing your worth. You don't flinch when misunderstood. You don't shrink when doubted. You don't chase because you choose. Mental power is the ability to be alone and not feel lonely. To be criticized and not collapse. To be uncertain and still move forward. It is presence without performance. Stillness without apathy. Conviction without noise. And once you taste it, the calm that no one can take from you, the clarity that cuts through chaos, the silence inside your head that used to be war, now turned to wisdom, you'll never go back. Because now you know the secret. The real battle was never out there. It was always in here. And the war is won when you stop trying to escape your mind and start mastering it. Vision. Vision isn't about seeing the future. It's about remembering what the present is trying to tell you. It's not about fantasy, delusion, or obsession with goals. It's about alignment. It's what remains when the noise dies down. It's what whispers to you when the world distracts. It's not a dream. It's a revelation. Most people can't see clearly, not because they lack potential, but because their minds are cluttered with projections that don't belong to them. Expectations inherited from their parents. Wounds shaped by their exes. Ambitions handed down by a culture that taught them to chase instead of create. Vision isn't about what's ahead. It's about seeing yourself without distortion. It's about burning every script that says you need to earn your worth. It's about stepping out of the story of who you were supposed to be and finally stepping into who you already are. A powerful mind doesn't wait for external clarity. It creates it. Not through rushing, not through forcing, but by subtracting every lie that fogs the mirror until what's left is truth. Simple, clean, undeniable. Vision is terrifying because once you see, you can't unsee. And now you have no excuse to settle. Now, mediocrity tastes like poison. Now, staying quiet feels like self-betrayal. Now, you know, and once you know, you must move. Clarity. Clarity isn't comfort. It's confrontation. The moment you stop pretending, the moment you stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what am I refusing to admit? Clarity is a scalpel. It cuts through the fog. It slices through denial. It's not gentle. It's not kind. But it is liberating. Because once you get clear on what matters, what truly matters, you stop wasting your life performing. You stop building things just to be seen. You stop chasing applause and start cultivating alignment. Most people aren't confused. They're avoiding the truth. The truth about their relationship. The truth about their habits. The truth about who they've become while trying to survive. But clarity comes when you stop running. When you sit still long enough for your soul to speak louder than your fear. When you let the discomfort teach you instead of distract you. And in that silence, clarity emerges. Not as a lightning bolt, but as a steady, unshakable knowing. This is who I am. This is what I will no longer tolerate. This is what I must become. Belief. Your belief system is not sacred, it's inherited. It's the operating system written by people who may have never questioned their own pain. But you were born to update the code. You were born to say, just because I believed it yesterday doesn't mean I'm married to it today. A powerful mind doesn't just question others, it questions itself. It challenges its assumptions. It interrogates every I can't and I'm not until it finds the root. And then it rewrites it. Belief is not passive. It's creative. What you believe, you build. If you believe you are broken, your decisions will reinforce that fracture. If you believe you're cursed, you'll manifest proof in every relationship. If you believe you're powerful, not perfect, but capable, your life will rise to meet that expectation. You are not at the mercy of your programming. You are the architect of your becoming. But belief is the blueprint. Don't just believe what's familiar. Believe what's useful. Believe what frees you. And if the old beliefs still haunt you, look them in the eye and say, thank you for keeping me safe. But I'm building something bigger now. Discipline. Discipline is self-love in action. Not self-punishment. Not perfectionism. Not control. Discipline is the highest form of self-respect. It's what you do when the motivation fades, when the applause stops, when no one is watching, and the old you whispers, just skip today. But you don't, because you made a vow, a sacred, quiet, non-negotiable vow to become the kind of person who follows through. Discipline isn't rigid. It's not about suffering. It's about consistency rooted in clarity. It's the daily decision to live in alignment with your future, not your impulses. It doesn't always feel good, but it always feels right. When your mind is powerful, discipline becomes identity. You no longer have to force it, because it's who you are. You don't do the work to get results. You do the work because it's what powerful people do. You don't train because it's convenient. You train because you're a warrior now. Discipline is not the cage. It's the key. Action. Mental strength without motion is potential wasted. You can think all the right thoughts. You can meditate, visualize, journal, but until you act, nothing changes. Action is the translation of belief into reality. It's the decision to stop preparing, stop researching, stop overanalyzing, and start doing. The most mentally powerful people aren't the smartest. They're the ones who move despite doubt, despite fear, despite noise. They understand. You don't wait until it's easy. You act until it becomes natural. You don't build confidence by sitting in your head. You build it by repeating courageous action. Start before you're ready. Move before it's perfect. Speak, even if your voice shakes. Write, even if your hand trembles. Stand, even if your knees buckle. Because the longer you wait, the more the old self tightens its grip. But the moment you move, you interrupt the pattern. You break the spell, and every act of courage sends a message to your mind. We are not who we used to be. Transcendence. You were not built to stay the same. Not mentally, not spiritually, not emotionally. Everything in nature evolves, and yet we treat the self like it's static, like who you were at 17 should dictate who you become at 37. That's not identity. That's imprisonment. Transcendence doesn't ask you to reject your past. It demands you rise above its limitations. It's not a denial, it's an integration. It's when you carry your scars like scrolls of wisdom, not shackles of shame. But here's the truth. Transcendence is not a peak, it's a process. You'll climb, then slip. You'll soar, then collapse. You'll speak your truth, then tremble at its echo. But each cycle purifies you, refines you, strips away the unnecessary. You begin to notice the triggers lose their bite. The fears lose their grip. The chaos no longer seduces you because you've seen beyond the veil. You've glimpsed the power that exists when you're no longer ruled by impulse. You become transparent. To others, maybe, but to yourself, always. And that is where real transcendence lives. It's not about leaving the world behind. It's about re-entering it as someone untouchable by its noise. Sovereignty. Sovereignty means you are no longer governed by external storms. It means your energy is yours. Your time is yours. Your choices are not based on pleasing, performing, or placating. Sovereignty is stillness in the face of noise. It's clarity in the middle of chaos. It's the unshakable truth that you do not owe anyone your obedience. Not your family, not your culture, not the voice of shame in your mind that mimics the tone of someone who never saw your worth. When you are sovereign, you no longer barter your truth for connection. You no longer apologize for your healing. You no longer shrink to be digestible. You understand the cost of betraying yourself is too high, and the reward of standing alone in truth is worth it. You stop chasing peace because you become it. Mastery. This is where the climb becomes creation. This is where power stops being potential and starts being presence. Mastery isn't about dominance over others. It's about dominion within. You master your mind by knowing what not to entertain. You master your energy by knowing where not to place it. You master your emotions by letting them move through you, not define you. You don't master life by controlling everything. You master it by choosing yourself in every moment you're tempted to abandon your standards. You become the kind of person who doesn't just react, you respond. Who doesn't just follow, you lead. Not for ego, but for integrity. Because the greatest freedom is living a life that doesn't require escape. You master your story. by rewriting it daily, with action, with boundaries, with unapologetic clarity. You stop asking the world for permission to rise. You rise anyway, the final becoming. This is the truth about mental power. It's not found in books. It's not granted by mentors. It's not inherited by blood. It's forged in silence, in solitude, in the long, dark nights where you decide to face yourself instead of hide from what you've carried. Mental power is not the absence of pain. It's the transformation of it. It's the ability to sit with your demons and realize they were just distorted pieces of your divinity waiting to be seen. The world will not hand you power. It will hand you mirrors, people to reflect your wounds, challenges to expose your weakness, storms to test your center. And each time you stand rooted, each time you breathe instead of break, each time you choose truth over comfort, you build it brick by brick, your inner fortress. So don't pray for an easier path. Pray for a stronger mind. Not one that avoids, but one that absorbs. Not one that dominates, but one that directs. Not one that pretends, but one that remembers. Because when you truly remember who you are, what you've survived, what you've risen from, what you've built in silence, what you've carried in darkness, you become unshakable. And from that place where nothing external holds your leash, you don't just think power. You don't just feel power. You are power. This is the truth about mental power. You don't find it. You forge it. And once it's yours, the world has no choice but to respond.